Hello and welcome to the Olfactive Melbourne podcast. I'm your host, Trent Stokes.
And I'm Robin Stokes. We're a husband and wife team passionate about perfume, and we're on a journey to better understand and explore the art of perfumery. We're coming to you today from Melbourne, Australia, and we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're recording. They are the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to the elders, past and present, and we extend that same respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are listening to the recording today.
On this show, we interview Australia's premier niche, artisanal and indie perfume brands. From the founders to the perfumers and on to the creatives who take us on a guided journey through a fragrance that best represents their brand. The show is wrapped around a masterclass in which we invite our guests to take us through each stage of the opening, the heart, and the base. The show unfolds in real time, meaning that there is time in between the opening and the heart and the base. And this is known as the dry down. During the dry down, we take the opportunity to deep dive into the perfumer's journey, their brand, their mission, their vision, their values, along with getting a better understanding of some of the technical terms in perfumery, along with how to identify individual notes and accords so that we can more deeply connect with perfumery, and also so that we can better identify the notes that we like and dislike. This allows us to make more informed decisions about the fragrances that we connect with and that we ultimately wear. The show is designed to be both educational and entertaining. So if you like what we do, please like and subscribe and make sure to sit back, relax and enjoy the show. The Olfactive Melbourne podcast is proudly sponsored by Watchvault, Australia's premier destination for luxury and vintage timepieces. Each watch is trusted, verified and ready for its next chapter. Visit watchvault.com.au to discover your next timeless investment.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Olfactive Melbourne podcast. Today, we welcome to the show Katrina Cochrane of Archer Farrar, a perfumer and storyteller whose work captures the beauty of botanicals and the power of memory and scent. Her artistry reflects elegance, authenticity, and a deep connection to the natural world. And we're so excited to have Katrina here with us today. Welcome to the show, Katrina.
Thanks so much, Trent and Robin. What a lovely introduction. Thank you.
So, Katrina, let's kick off the show by just hearing a little bit from you about Archer Farrar. So how did you come up, or what's the inspiration for the name? And how long have you been around? Where are you based?
So Archer Farrar is my perfume studio. I'm a natural perfumer, or a botanical perfumer is a lovely way of putting it. I started the brand in 2020 and I'm based in Neutral Bay in Sydney. And the name is my family name, which is Archer on my mother's side, and my husband's family name, which is Farrar. He pronounces it Farrar. I pronounce it Farrar. Either or. And yeah, so it's just a combination of those. And it's quite interesting, just the part about being a botanical perfumer, which is really important to me. I just love working with plant-based materials just because I love them. But I kind of take it a step further than most botanical perfumers, which just means you work with plant-based ingredients only. I don't work with any isolates or aroma chemicals. I simply work with everything as close to the living botanical as possible. So everything I use still has its species name.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So we're obviously doing our interview virtually today. So we've had the benefit of having some fragrances sent to us in advance. And we're going to be exploring a fragrance that many of our viewers might not be aware of. So we're looking at Mona Farm. So what I'd love to know from you, Katrina, is why have we selected Mona Farm to be the showcase fragrance today?
So I selected Mona Farm for a couple of reasons. It actually hasn't launched yet. It launches next week, but that's not the reason why we're talking about it now. That is just incredibly serendipitous timing. Mona Farm is a collaboration that I worked on with the actual Mona Farm. And just to give you some background, Mona Farm is a property about 3 hours west of Sydney. where I'm from, where I'm based, closer to Goulburn or the ACT. And it's a beautiful property that is a working farm, but it's also like a luxury guest stay experience. And people can have events there. They host a lot of weddings, that sort of thing. The Bona Farm team came to me and they wanted to create a scent that was a representation of their beautiful, really special place. So I went and stayed there and I worked with their head gardener to look at what was in the gardens and I created my representation of place. The reason why it works so well in this podcast format is it rolls through the notes really nicely because that's how you guys work. Generally around the top, you talk about the top, the heart, and the base notes. And this fragrance particularly rolls through them really, really well.
Fantastic. That is a nice little segue into actually explaining the way the perfume pyramid works just before we do get stuck into actually having a sniff. Although Robin's already taken the liberty of already spraying my hand here and passing a blotter.
Yeah.
So just before we get stuck into having a smell, just for our viewers, just to explain how we're going to be experiencing Mona Farm today, we'll be experiencing Mona Farm through the lens of the perfume pyramid. So the perfume pyramid is a representation of a shape, just like a pyramid, where we have our opening notes right at the very top of that pyramid, followed by our heart notes that sit right in the center and our base notes right at the very bottom. What we're about to experience here are our opening notes. And opening notes are made up of the lightest and most volatile aroma molecules. So that means that those molecules will surface to the fragrance first, giving us that sort of opening introduction to the fragrance, but they'll also dissipate the fastest, making way for those heart notes yet to come. So with that explanation of the perfume pyramid there, Katrina, let's have a smell and then you can tell us what we're experiencing here in the opening.
Can I just say the notes never behave as you want them to? No notes actually stay in their lane. As you guys know, we talk about the top, middle, and base because it's the easiest way to discuss these things. And obviously, as we know, that as you explained, the top notes are the lightest molecules. But it's funny, what I get from that first scent of Mona Farm, you can already smell the farm notes, which are the base notes. So that green, the hay, even though it's a base note, it is already there right from the fore. So I visited Mona Farm in autumn. Actually, it was the last day of autumn and the first day of winter. And so an autumn and winter garden is obviously quite different from a spring and summer garden, especially at Mona Farm. In spring and summer, the farm it really focuses around a beautiful rose garden. But in a more late autumn garden, the soil's wetter, it's cooler, the sunshine's cooler, it's mistier, there's not those sweet blooms in the air. It was quite more herbaceous, more earthy, more greener notes. The beautiful farm notes were sort of more like wet, damp hay, and those beautiful, like the sweeter, farmy notes, almost like, like that beautiful, the sweetness of a coat of the horse, the leather. I wanted them to be more prevalent in the fragrance. So the first things that we smell, as I say, you can already smell the damp, almost the damp hay, but it was the herbaceousness of the ground cover as you're walking between the guest houses, which is made up of something called Santolina or Santolina. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but it is this beautiful Mediterranean green ground cover that smells like a really sweet vanilla, mellow lemon thyme. And then the cool air and the cool dappled sunshine, I've represented with things like alpine lavender. There's some bergamot in there for crispness as well. But really, I want that. It is the cooler, crisper, more herbaceous notes that come at you first, along already with some of the base that's creeping its way through from the start.
Now, it's definitely worth sort of explaining that while the perfume pyramid, we explain it in a way that's linear. So it's going from opening to heart to base, but as you've just rightfully called out, we've got base notes that are already punching through that opening. Heart notes will often punch through, and so we can start smelling those things. Most perfumes don't necessarily unfold in quite a linear manner. It's just really just to give us an understanding of how perfume ultimately is constructed.
Absolutely.
Which is obviously from the base upwards.
And as a bespoke perfumer, that's how I communicate with my clients as well. So interesting you say construct from the base upwards. I don't always construct my perfumes from the base upwards. I might construct in all different ways. This one I constructed around the heart or the jonquil accord, which we'll get to.
I think that's definitely worth leaning into a little bit more. So, obviously we're on our perfume journey, and we're trying to understand and bring people along on that educational journey. So, I guess our understanding has been that you build sort of from the base up. How do you go about actually building from something like the heart?
Well, if it depends on what I want the perfume to be focused on. Sometimes, like this, the Mona Farm Autumn Garden was really focused around the wild jonquils, which we get to. And so I created a jonquil accord, and I wanted the whole perfume to be centered around the jonquil garden part of the fragrance, just like the Mona Farm Garden is in autumn. And so I built the heart, and then I built the heart being, I built the jonquil accord, which I then fleshed out as a heart. And then I built my base, and then I added the jonquil accord and then the rest of the heart. And then I created the top notes to round the perfume out at the end. So I don't build from the base up. I think perfumers work in a lot of different ways. Some perfumers work in what they call, I think it's like the tri-parfum method, which is they really build around 3 ingredients that they know they want to, and they might be a mixture of base, middle, top. They might be all top, they might be all heart, they might be all base, and they build a perfume outwards from that. So there are many, many different ways of building a perfume, or a natural perfume. I can't speak for anything else.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I think, I guess we've spoken to, as you know, a number of different perfumers, and a lot of perfumers will start with the story. Some of them will start with a memory. Some of them will start with a particular note that they're wanting to champion or hero inside of their fragrance. So lots of different ways to, skin a cat in terms of how you actually build out a fragrance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it depends on the fragrance. It depends on, I'm not one of those perfumers that only builds in one certain way. Sometimes I have built in the typical, top, heart, base. I've certainly practiced a lot in that way, except I sort of call them enhancing notes, heart notes, and extending notes, and then bridge notes between them. I've also used what I just explained, the tri-parfum method, which is just, I really love the smell of these 3 things together, and I want that to be the crux of the fragrance, and then you build accordingly. I've built using a base first, all sorts, depending on the perfume that I would like to create.
That's really good for us to know because, as Trent said, we've kind of just had this idea that it's a certain way, but there's plenty of different ways. So that's really good. I'd like to just maybe go back to the top notes a little bit. How did they contribute to the composition?
In terms of what these particular top notes gave to this composition, I think that's where you're getting the cool autumnal winter dappled sunshine, not warm sunshine. Do you know what I mean? Almost savory and herbaceous and cool rather than sweet and spritzy and springtime. And so I think they set a seasonal tone in this particular perfume.
Fantastic. So, Katrina, when you went and stayed at Mona Farm just to get an understanding of how to, I guess, be inspired to create this fragrance, you obviously stayed there in autumn. Give us a visual of how you go about capturing these scents. Are you sort of walking around and smelling the earth and smelling the trees? Like, how are you getting this inspiration?
Well, I did all that, actually. I did all that. I had a tour with their head gardener, who's a lovely guy called Ben, and we went and we looked at all the different gardens, and we went out a little bit into the farm, and he showed me all the different trees. We really went through the whole garden. It was lovely, and we smelt everything. And, as much as it is a direct representation of that time I had there and how the garden smelt, you also add some creative license to it. And so the air, the cool sunshine, the dappled sunshine, the cool air, that's my creative take on that, which is why I've added the cool citrus tones, of bergamot. But there's also still some pink pepper to sweeten it up slightly, because you have to want to wear it. It has to smell good as well. So you have to make it a wearable version. And then when we get to the base notes, I've used some, what mistier tones I've achieved through things like frankincense, which isn't necessarily a direct representation of what I smelt, but it's how I'm evoking a scene in my mind, and hopefully the wearer's mind. So I did exactly that. I just smelt everything.
This is, we're really intrigued as to how perfumers actually go about capturing the inspiration for a scent. And obviously, your job's not there to try and replicate the exact smell of absolutely everything. You're trying to encapsulate the feeling of where you're at that given time. So,
having said that, when the Mona Farm client came and smelt the finished product, she put it on and she was like, "Oh my gosh, it just smells like Mona Farm." And I mean, that's a great compliment, because it does to an extent smell just like the farm, which is beautiful.
Wow. I must admit, I went online and I looked up the farm, and it has the most beautiful images online. So for any listeners that are curious to know a little bit more about Mona Farm, we will put that link in the show notes as well, because it's absolutely stunning. And I think it's award-winning gardens. And, when I smell this now, I'm visualizing the farm as well, which is beautiful.
Really special.
So just before we move on from the notes, you did give us a sort of a brief explanation of this note, Santalina, I think it is pronounced.
Yeah. Is it Santalina? Thanks, Trent.
I have, but you sort of described it as having that sort of lemony, vanilla-y type of smell. How did you go about sort of identifying that this was the ingredient that you wanted to use to sort of capture in that opening there? Because I'm not familiar with Santalina. How do you go about selecting this particular note?
It smells so good. And we were walking around the farm and Ben pointed out, because it's everywhere, and said, "Smell this." And it's really lovely. It just smells like, so to get the Santalina scent, it's vanilla, lemon, thyme, a few other things to recreate sort of a Santalina accord. I've created that smell. That isn't an extract that you might be able. I mean, it would be a great thing if I had some time. I could have tinctured it myself. Trent, I love that stuff. But no, I didn't. I recreated it for the purpose of this perfume.
So the Santalina is an accord built of those particular...
Exactly. I recreated
those notes.
it. Yeah.
But it's a known accord called Santalina.
No, I just recreated the scent of it. Yeah. It's a plant.
It's a plant.
It's a plant. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. It's a ground cover plant, which was everywhere.
Great. Fantastic. Okay, so it's something that you could possibly tincture, but you've just gone and done an accord.
And I've just used those notes that are in the scent profile of that plant. I've used them in the perfume to recreate that smell as one of the first smells of the perfume.
All right. So we have now experienced the opening, and we've got probably, I'd say, 10 or 15 minutes of dry down. Now, obviously, when we talk about the dry down of an opening or of a heart, it does vary by fragrance quite significantly, but we'll give this 10 or 15 minutes to dry down. And while we've got that dry down happening, we want to dive into your background a bit, Katrina. I'm sure there's plenty of people who are aware of Archer Farrar, but maybe they're not aware of your background and how you actually got into perfumery in the first place. So this is where we'd like to sort of dive into. So I guess the first question for you is, how did you actually get into perfume in the first place? What's the inspiration? Where did it all start for you?
I'd say, like a lot of your guests, I was always obsessed with perfume when I was really little, from a really young age. My mum was a horticulturalist. I always loved botanicals. I collected all the tags off all the, the plants at the nurseries and things like that. I always had a good sense of smell. It was the 80s and 90s, so it was kind of much easier to tell what people were wearing then, because the perfumes are all so bold. But I could certainly, tell what most... I knew a lot of fragrances just by smelling them when they entered the room, a lot of perfumes. I think I did my first created my first enfleurage when I was about 12 or 13, which is I extracted the scent of jasmine from a lot of jasmine blooms. It was mildly successful. It wasn't a huge success. And then I was always very into essential oils and aromatherapy from a really young age. So I always knew I wanted to work in perfume, but I found the whole idea of going to France and being a perfumer was very daunting for a 16, 17-year-old Australian. So I did what, I thought at the time. I went to university, and then when I finished university, I actually put myself through an aromatherapy diploma because I wanted to start a skincare label. But then I wanted to get some experience in the big wide world in skincare and perfume before I went and started this skincare label. And so I got a job, and that job was actually in the alcohol arm of a big luxury business. And I started in the alcohol arm thinking I would like to move over into the perfume cosmetics arm. However, I loved the alcohol industry. I did move briefly into perfume and cosmetics, which I didn't enjoy so much. I found what you missed I was in communications, so I was in PR and marketing, and what you missed in the perfume and cosmetics arena industry was that beautiful connection to nature, which you had in wine and champagne, and that connection to person and that connection to place. And wine and alcohol, whether it be talking to a master distiller who creates whiskey in Scotland, or whether you're talking to someone who works in a champagne house in France, they still have this incredible connection to place and this incredible connection to the people that go into helping them to create that. And just all these layered stories, it makes a wine and a whiskey and a botanical perfume everything it is. There were just so many synergies. And I loved working in alcohol. And then when I actually left the industry with the idea to start this skincare label again. But I realized I was more interested in the smells I was making it for the skincare rather than the skincare itself, face oils. And I remember texting friends saying, "Oh my gosh, it must have been a dry skin oil I was trying to make because I know it was sandalwood and sweet orange or something." And I texted a friend and said, "I've just made the most incredible smelling face oil. It smells like kind of monastic, but it's like you've got Jaffas in church." And I was like, "Oh, I'm more interested in the scent that I am to the face oil." And I was just about to launch and I went, "I don't want to do this. I think I want to get more into perfume." And I didn't have any idea that there was such a thing as a natural perfumer back then. That must have been in about 2017. I didn't realize. I'd never heard of a botanical perfumer. And so I did my research and realized that I could be a perfumer who, just like a winemaker, only works with naturals, only works with botanicals. And there were numerous places that I could study online. And my timing was great because then had a couple of children, then COVID happened. And so it was a perfect time to study. And then my brand I started in 2020.
That's amazing. What a great story. And it's just amazing to sort of think about wine and its connections to place and storytelling elements, and then how that is sort of you had that journey before you moved into perfumery. So
Yes.
now if you could tell us a little bit about from that moment where you decided you're going to take on perfume and you've done the learning part of it, how did you go about creating your brand?
Well, it was always going to be a profession. I think I'd spent so much of my life sort of wanting to do this thing and then realizing, oh, I can actually do it. I knew it was always going to be how I made a living. It was always going to be what I did for work from that point. And so I started after COVID and after I created this brand and I started making bespoke perfume for mainly friends. And that was a great way to start because it's practice and people push you and you're getting briefs that you have to meet, and private clients motivate you because you're getting briefs that are more challenging than probably what you'd give yourself, or they're out of your comfort zone, which is the best way of learning. And then that kind of grew and it got to word of mouth. And yeah, I just had more and more bespoke clients. And it went from there.
Fantastic. So Archer Farrar has sort of been led by bespoke sort of
Definitely.
perfume to start. So it sort of
Definitely.
explains now why Mona Farm is a good representation of your brand, being a bespoke perfume
Yeah.
made on request.
Yes, exactly. Made to people's special briefs. And so that's why I also like to think of what I do as I'm quite a people focused perfume house. I think of my perfumes as having personalities, or they all remind me of the person that I created them for, really. I now sell a range online, but it's taken 5 years of hard work to get to a place where I'm really happy with, introducing these perfumes to a wider audience, I guess. And they really stand up. And I still love the bespoke side of the business too. But the thing about bespoke is you just can't, economies of scale, you just can't see enough clients. And it's a lot of time per client too. And so this is a better way of, you know, introducing my perfumes to.
Yeah, I was curious, what is the standard or sort of general amount of time that a bespoke fragrance would take from the time you get the brief to, how long do people give you to create that fragrance for them?
It can take, like, how long's a piece of string? It can take, some you can make in, 4 hours, or it's just, if it's something that I've done a lot of, sometimes it's everything just works and you do it quite fast. Some of the more difficult briefs, if you get a brief for a type of perfume that I've never created before, that's going to take hours and hours and hours. I say that from our meeting, minimum of 3 weeks. Sometimes it takes less, sometimes it can take more, but that's only for when I introduce them to the first draft of the perfume. And then,
Okay.
you have to make it in a larger quantity. But it can take, oh my gosh, I mean, creating one of my perfumes here, Peony Cologne, I've been working on that for 5 years, but then you don't
Yeah.
have that. You don't have that amount of time to spend with a client. So it's an intense, say, from 5 hours to 30 hours. It depends.
Yeah, it just depends on the brief.
It depends on the brief, yeah.
Fantastic. So, as you know, we're very focused on education with this podcast. We're always trying to learn new things. And there's something that you said on your journey, particular technique that you learnt, which I'd like a bit more explanation on, if it's okay. So I'm going to butcher this, but I think you might have said, was it enfleurage?
Enfleurage.
Where you were
Yeah.
enfleurage. All right.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit more for us?
Okay, so enfleurage is a really old, ancient technique of extracting the scent from flowers. And how it is done is the fat extracts scent from flowers. And so if you can find like a deodorized fat, these days I used deodorized coconut oil, which is solid at room temperature, and you lay a really thin layer of that over like a mirror or just a glass base. And so lay it down when it's liquid, it solidifies. And then if you put flowers on top of that, this is how I make my gardenia, by the way. If you put flowers on top of that and you cover it totally with flowers, say jasmine, you can do it with rose, you can do it with anything. No, they might not all work so well, but you can do it with pretty much anything. And you change the flowers every 24 hours, and you then smell the deodorized coconut oil, the fat. It will have absorbed the scent of the flowers. So you keep changing the flowers, say every 24 hours for up to 2 weeks or more, and the fat, it becomes sort of at its capacity with scent. And so then you've got this really highly, beautifully scented fat. And then you scrape the fat off, and you put that fat in with pure alcohol, or 95% alcohol, 96% alcohol, as pure as you can get. And you leave it, you sort of heat it gently. You can leave it on a windowsill, shake it up. And the alcohol then absorbs the scented material from the fat. And then you cool it down, and you can decant the alcohol off that now has absorbed all the scent. And so you end up with a lovely, a scented alcohol, which is called the enfleurage estrée. If you have a lot of that, you can then evaporate the alcohol off, and you're left with a concrete or an absolute, which is a really highly scented, sort of like a waxy kind of gooey substance, which is the highly, highly scented flower material.
Isn't that fascinating?
That's what they've
It's
been.
actually kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's fun. I mean, anyone can do it. It's not technical. It's just time consuming, and you need to get your hands on a lot of flowers. And it works well with flowers. I don't know if you could enfleurage. You can make a tincture out of herbs and stuff. I don't think you bother. I don't know about. I mean, I just do it with flowers. But a tincture is when you put something in alcohol, and the alcohol, being a solvent, draws out the scent. And so you end up with a tincture, then it's the scented alcohol that way. So you can tincture flowers as well. But I think tincturing works better with herbs and things like that.
Okay, so it's quite an ancient technique, that one.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's
It
beautiful.
sounds like an ancient technique, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It's something also that perhaps many, 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 many decades ago people did as, collected flowers and found fat and did that kind of method to.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's how I used to get the floral scents.
Absolutely. I can imagine that's rather than decades, probably hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I sort of meant like even in households, and probably might have been a bit more of a commonly known method of extracting scent than what it is now. Yeah. Well, I've only just learned about it.
Yes. Well, now, I mean, we've got so many beautiful raw materials at our fingertips, which we can buy from great suppliers like I do. The only thing I enfleurage every year is gardenias, and I've got a gardenia scent that I would have sent to you in my little sample pack. And gardenia, the enfleurage is straight, just smells just like the gardenia blooms. I find that I haven't been able to find a raw material that smells anything like that from even really good suppliers.
Fantastic. I love the fact that you come from the alcohol industry. Robin and I actually come from the alcohol industry. I think we, when we were having a bit of a chat earlier, we explained that to you. That's how we actually met.
Yes.
Through the alcohol industry. And there's just so much alignment between the wine industry and perfume. Quite often when we talk to friends and family about this passion of ours, because a lot of people just don't understand why we go so deep into perfume. As you can imagine, if you're not geeking out on perfume, people are going, oh, hang on a minute, isn't it just a fashion accessory that you chuck on? Which it can be. But when we want to explain the depth of perfume and why we want to understand perfume at the level that we're really picking at here, we often draw their attention to wine. So as you might experience the depth of wine, and somebody sits down and they taste it and they can taste the oak and the cherry and the whatever it might be inside of the wine. It's very similar here with fragrance as well. And it helps them sort of better understand why we might want to understand perfume a little bit more, just as a wine aficionado might want to experience wine.
Absolutely. And I think having come from the alcohol industry like you guys, it gives you a vocabulary to talk about scent as well. Just sitting in tastings and knowing how to explain what you're tasting when it comes to wine, or knowing how to explain what you're smelling when it comes to perfume, is a massive hurdle for people to overcome. And once you have that vocabulary and you also are more confident to express what you're smelling, and you know that nothing is silly, I think that's a massive strength coming into this industry.
Absolutely. And I think this is a really good call out as well, that there is nothing silly, right?
No, there's nothing silly. No, gosh. And it's totally subjective too.
If you smell something and you say, hey, I smell this particular note, and that note is not listed in the perfume, it might actually be there, because we don't list absolutely everything that is in the perfume, one. And two, we often experience scents subjectively.
I think the other thing is the confidence, because even now, although we're being very fortunate to actually being trained by perfumers as we go through the podcast, there can still be days when, my confidence is down and I'm not quite sure, and I will go, oh yeah, that just smells lovely. And you got to find those words again, right? So I think it's practice and being in a safe environment, sharing, and just building confidence that way.
Confidence is so much to do with it. Absolutely. But having that vocabulary at the back of your mind that you've learnt from wine and alcohol. Yeah, as I said, that's a big obstacle to overcome. A really big obstacle. Also, I find when you have the notes written down in front of you, it's so suggestive. And so you just end up going, oh no, I can smell bergamot, or I can smell damp earth. It's more fun smelling something totally blind. And then you have to really use, your senses and your vocabulary to express what you're smelling. And everything that I smell, I catalogue, and I guarantee most of my scent notes won't make any sense to anybody but me. I talk about what I smell in terms of music a lot, in terms of different octaves. I talk about it in shapes a lot, in all sorts of abstract ways. It doesn't just have to be, smelling like something else from nature. Or I tell stories about it. And, it's funny because if I smell one of my ingredients that I may have smelled 4 years ago, and I write such detailed notes about what I'm smelling. And then I come back, I get a new batch. And so I have to write scent notes on that as well. So often what I write is so similar, even in the weird abstract ways that I'm explaining it. So much of it, it's always so similar. And so it's really just if it makes sense to you as a perfumer.
I think this is probably where the art form of perfumery comes into play here, because it's art, and art can be interpreted in many, many different ways.
Well, I think it's just reinforcing nothing's wrong. Everything's right if it makes sense to you.
So before we move on to our heart notes, just for a little bit of clarity here, just on your journey, Katrina. So you've started out with experimenting with perfume, making some perfumes for friends. That's evolved into professional briefs with different businesses. At what point did Archer Farrar go from you doing stuff, sort of experimenting and doing bespoke work, to it's now a brand that's launched with its own range and, you're pushing out to the world? At what point did that actually happen?
Well, I always had a signature range that was available for people to come and smell, but it was by appointment only. And so if I had clients, they could come and smell. It wasn't it wasn't such a formal range as I've got now, which is behind me. It was more, I always had about 5 or 6 perfumes that I had in like a classic range that I had, a typical Asperities or cologne. I had one that was sort of more a floral. And people could come and make an appointment and decide whether or not they could find something from the classic range, or did they want to move forward with a bespoke perfume. So I kind of always did have an idea that I would release a range more widely. It's just so much easier for people to be able to purchase online rather than make an appointment with me, come and smell for 20 minutes. It's better, I think, for my audience, for my wearers, and it's better for me to just have discovery sets available to purchase. And if people do want to make an appointment and come and smell the range with me, that's great. But I think it's easy for everybody to have it available online. So it always was going to move in that direction, I think. Now I look back on it, but it's only in the last about year that I only launched the website. I launched the online shop about 2 months ago now. And so I've been building up to that for about the last year, I think, and just deciding on my final range. And the beauty is it's my online shop. I think I've got 7 perfumes on there at the moment, but I can add more. I can take some out. Gardenia, which we were talking about before, which is an enfleurage straight. I only make a certain amount of that every year, so it is a limited edition. And so generally I sell out of that. I make more in December when the gardenias bloom. I have all my gardenias at home that I harvest. Mine tend to bloom quite late, so I generally make that enfleurage in December. Yeah, so I can sub them out. If I make a great perfume, I've already got big plans to put another one in next year, which I absolutely love. And so, the range will expand.
Fantastic. So you'll continue that focus on the bespoke services, which are quite clearly demonstrated here with Mona Farm, but you'll also be building up your range. Well, that gives us a really good understanding of your background, the background of Archer Farrar, sort of where you've got to so far. So I think at this stage, we're probably ready to move on to our heart notes. What do you think?
This edition of Olfactive Melbourne is proudly brought to you by Silver Australia. Silver Australia design and shape their jewellery in their studio in Melbourne, and they're pleased to offer Olfactive Melbourne listeners 20% off when you use the code MASA20. So let's just return to the perfume pyramid, even though we know that this fragrance kind of evolves a little differently. I'll just talk about the heart notes. So they are the center of the pyramid and the core of the fragrance. And this is really where the essence or the characteristics, the personality of the fragrance really comes into its own and is expressed outwardly in the fragrance. So with that all being said, it'd be fantastic, Katrina, if you could take us through the heart notes.
Absolutely, I would love to. I do need to say natural perfumes, particularly ones that I make, which are only made from the botanicals and the absolutes, the essential oils, the resins, they tend to be more dynamic than perfumes that use a combination of synthetics, aroma chemicals, and naturals. And so while this perfume, I think, rolls through quite nicely, a lot of my perfumes, the top notes will go within like 10 minutes, and then the heart notes will stay, then the extending or the base notes will stay for longer. But that is something about really, really natural perfumes. They are much more dynamic. And they tend not to, they definitely don't last as long on the skin as perfumes that are a combination of all different sort of aroma chemicals. But these heart notes, I'm really, really proud of. It's all about the jonquil garden, as I said before. And so when you go to Mona Farm in autumn, the rose garden, which is so impressive even in autumn, but would be super impressive in spring and summer, it just has a few roses left on the bushes. It does smell, it still smells quite rosy, but it's really quite green. And by green smelling, I mean, like mulchy, like vegetation, like when you rub leaves together. But the main thing you smell is just the jonquils, which are blanketed everywhere. And there's about 4 or 5 different varieties of jonquils, which each have their own aroma profile. And they were breathtaking, really. The scent, when you were walking through some of the jonquil kind of forested areas, was just heavenly. And the jonquil itself, it smells quite, it's quite light. It's got some freesia notes. It's got some muskier tones. And I really wanted that to be the heart and the soul of this perfume. And so you can actually, when it's on the skin, you can smell. If we were smelling this, we just left that for about 15 or 20 minutes. But if we were smelling it solidly, every kind of 2 minutes, you can smell the heart start to bloom on the skin. You can actually smell the jonquils bloom. And they get steadily stronger. And it's so gorgeous because they're not there from the start, just like the haze sort of there in the top notes. But the jonquil more, you can feel it growing from the base. And then it sort of blooms into the heart. And it's a beautiful heart. Along with the jonquil, there's also quite a green rose. So it's a particular botanical. It's a Rosa centifolia, but it's from Egypt, which has quite a green aroma profile, like much greener, much leafier than, say, the Tunisian version, which I also have. But I use the Egyptian version in this. And I'm really, really pleased with where the heart goes.
So for those of us who aren't keen botanists, what is a jonquil? And if we were wandering out in nature, how would we identify a jonquil?
They're like mini daffodils is the closest thing. They're smaller. They've got like a much smaller little head of the flower, and they're often not as bright yellow. You know what a daffodil looks like? There's sort of, you've got the petals and then sort of the cup in the middle. They're like mini versions of that, but often they're more muted pale colors. They can be plain white. They can be soft buttery yellow. They can have an orange sort of cup in the middle. Yeah, they're all part of the Narcissus family, I believe. I'm a botanical perfumer. I'm not a botanist either.
It's we obviously did a little bit of research, so we know what a jonquil is. But
whereas the daffodil doesn't really smell that strongly, or it doesn't have much of an aroma. The jonquils are so highly scented. They're really quite a bold scent. So quite different.
So in doing our research on jonquil, we did note that jonquil can be quite a difficult ingredient to work with, particularly the jonquil absolute. What sort of challenges did it present to you, and how did you actually tame it inside of the fragrance?
So this is where I'm going to geek out on botanicals and extraction methods. So hopefully I explain it in an okay way, because I love this. And if I'm going,
please do.
Please stop me if I'm boring you, because that can happen. So jonquil it's not that it's a really difficult absolute to work with. It just smells, the absolute extract smells quite different to the flower. And there's a reason for this. I can give you a really basic lesson on extraction techniques in natural perfumery, which might be helpful. We've all heard of an essential oil, which is normally...
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I will go into this in a bit more detail when we go and test some ingredients later. But generally, it's an essential oil. You can have like a cold press, which is like you do with citrus fruits. Think about how you get the olive oil out of olives. You squash them. say you do citrus. Essential oil, that's normally a steam distillation technique to extract the scent. And then we have these things called absolutes. And absolute is when you solvent extract the scent from the botanical material or the plant material. And so usually the solvent is called hexane. And so you put all these flowers in with this solvent. It's sort of like what I was saying with enfleurage before. The scent goes into the solvent, and then you wash the solvent with alcohol. The scent transfers from the solvent into the alcohol. Then you evaporate the alcohol off, and you end up with the absolute, which is the scented material. However, here's the thing. When you've got really fragile flowers like, what's great is tuberose, another great example, jonquil, boronia, a lot of the tiny little beautiful fragrant molecules that you smell when you actually smell the flower, they don't make it through the extraction process. So they get, because if there's heat applied, they die off. They don't make it to the final absolute, the final fragrant material. And so what we smell, the absolute that we smell, is generally a lot darker than the living flower. It's quite animalic, it's quite leathery. I've sent you a sample of what the jonquil absolute smells like by itself. It's sort of dark. You can smell the pollen. It's sort of a polleny kind of sweetness, but it is quite leathery. It's quite green in a dark way. It's quite vegetal. It doesn't smell like that light, that lovely light freesia style flower, and that which I wanted to recreate in the perfume. And so what you have to do as a perfumer is you have to build this jonquil absolute into an accord that smells like the living flower, which I did for this perfume. The jonquil accord I created is the heart of the fragrance, and so it uses, what did I put in the accord? Oh my gosh. Like there's pink pepper CO2 in there, which is, we'll get into the CO2 extractions. They're an incredible extraction process. Jasmine to sweeten it, the pink pepper CO2, which lightens it, a couple of different sorts of roses, one which I've sent you, which is one of my favorite roses of all time, which is a white rose. So I really needed to liven it. I needed to lift it. I needed to sweeten it. And the accord that I built smells much like the original flower. And jonquil absolute still remains at the base and still makes it smell like jonquil absolute. You just need to build the rest of the flower around it.
Now, I'm sure that whole process would be a lot easier if you were using synthetics or you were using isolates, for instance.
Yes.
So we've touched on this very lightly through the interview so far, but probably worth explaining for maybe people who might not have heard some of the other episodes that we've done. But there is a distinct difference between natural perfumery and botanical perfumery in terms of both use natural ingredients, but they're slightly different. What's the difference between a botanical perfumer and a natural perfumer?
So that's a really interesting question. So a natural perfumer uses everything comes from a natural source. And so a natural perfumer could use, for example, ambergris, which is from a sperm whale, or they could use civet, which is, from a muskrat. They could use animal-based substances too. And a botanical perfumer purely uses everything that's from a plant source. So we don't use anything from animals. I actually, on occasion, do use butter. It's butter absolute, which is, so I'm more, my standard range is actually vegan, but that's not a conscious decision that I've necessarily made. I'm happy to use things like butter or beeswax. A purely botanical perfume probably wouldn't. Where I stand a little bit a step apart from that is I don't use any isolates. So it depends how technical you want me to get here, but I think I can
go technical. That's
okay,
fine.
I can explain it pretty simply. Isolate. So every natural extract is made up of hundreds of different aroma molecules altogether. There might be hundreds of them. To get in lavender essential oil, there might be 100 of them. You've got like esters, you've got alcohols, you've got terpenes, you've got all these little molecules all living in there together, making lavender essential oil smell like lavender essential oil. An isolate is when they take out one particular molecule, like linalool, and they separate it from the rest of the essential oil because that molecule smells a certain way. And so you end up with a substance which is made up purely of this one molecule. As the great perfumer Mandy Aftel compares it to, she's an American incredible natural perfumer, she compares it to taking the yolk from an egg. And it's still absolutely natural. It's from a natural source. You can also, I think, make those isolates, those single aroma molecules. You can make them also synthetically, but everything's natural. If they're from a natural source, you can use them either as botanical perfumer, you can use them as a natural perfumer. I don't use those. I use everything that still has all its hundreds of different molecules, or as many as survive the extraction process. So everything I use still has its species, its plant species name. Whereas if you're using something like linalool, which is an isolate, it no longer has a species name. It now is just called linalool because it's just made up of that one molecule. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It makes 100% sense.
Mm.
We've actually had another botanical perfumer on the show before, Amanda Thompson from Ciuno, who sort of gave us a very sort of similar explanation. What she mentioned to us, and I thought it helped us sort of understand the why behind why she uses those whole botanical ingredients, which was, she quoted a study on Manuka honey, where scientists were trying to isolate which particular facet of that Manuka honey gave you the healing qualities, and they couldn't. There was no one single facet of that Manuka honey that they could isolate and say that provides healing qualities. It was the sum of the whole. And that's why she uses, sort of whole botanical. So you get the full, potency of the plant, the full spectrum.
Yeah. And I think, look, I just love botanicals, and I love the variation. Like with wine, I love the variation that the terroir, the extraction process, the people behind it makes. I think there's such beauty in the variation of the different botanicals. That's why I love to work with them. I love the fact that, I get the same species of rose from 3 different countries, and it smells remarkably different. Don't even start me on vetiver, because we could be here all day. Like, seriously. I love that. But there's also great advantages in using isolates too, which I fully understand. I have nothing against it. I know I've been called a little bit silly for not opening my palette to them, but isolates and different aroma chemicals and synthetics and stuff, they give a perfume more consistency. You don't end up with that variation like you get from botanicals. I think they make the perfume less dynamic, which is good if you want a really long lasting perfume on the skin. They're more cost effective a lot of the time, which means that you can sell your product to your audience for a better price, but still have the great craftsmanship of the perfumer behind it. So I'm absolutely not. I see there are a lot of benefits in using them, but the reason why I work with only botanicals and as close to the plant as I can is because I just love them, and I love the variation of all the flaws in them to the flaws in them that make them what they are.
We've become real botanical perfume lovers by better understanding that sort of core concept that you just called out there, which is that imperfection that you see, or that inconsistency that you see by using some of those ingredients, and that's not actually a bad thing. That's actually one of the wonderful things about the perfume, is that you can see slight variation from batch to batch and from season to season. I think one of our first guests on the show, Sandrine Keogh of Signet Perfumery, called it out quite nicely. There's perfection in imperfection. And we love that. You can appreciate it a little bit more rather than just always getting exactly the same thing, very clinical, every season. That's something that's beautiful about these types of perfumes.
It is, unless you're in a situation like I was in with Mona Farm, when I formulated with one particular rose, but then I couldn't get my hands on it anymore. So I had to reformulate to make it as similar as possible. And it has its own set of issues, challenges as well. Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, I think that's a nice segue now into our raw botanicals. Now, this is a bit of a first. Well, actually, it's not a bit of a first. It's an absolute first on our show.
Yeah.
We haven't had the opportunity to explore the raw natural ingredients. You actually sent us a number of them for us to experience with you on the show. We've been very tempted to smell these before today, but we have held back so that we can actually experience this with your guidance,
well done.
Which has been terribly, terribly difficult, I must say, because they've just been sitting there just calling to us.
You're right.
But we want to go through them with you now. So,
okay, great.
Where do you suggest we start with our raw ingredients?
Well, I sent you a few. These are all ingredients of Mona Farm, except for one because it's lemon in an oil base. I'll just give you a quick overview of why I sent you these ones particularly. I sent them because they highlighted how the extraction method can change the scent of the botanical. Also, I sent them some to show you how, like we just found with jonquil absolute, something can smell so different when it's just by itself as to how it smells in a blend. I also sent you an oil versus an alcohol, so you can smell how what a perfume is diluted in can change the perfume so significantly. And I sent Roman camel. I also wanted to show you how diffusive certain botanicals are versus others. So I think, why don't we start with, do you know what? Let's start with the junipers. And so I can
Okay.
talk about essential oils versus CO2 extracts. That's a really, really lovely,
Sounds
a
good.
lovely way.
Okay.
So let's start with the plain juniper essential oil. And I think essential oils is a botanical extraction technique that most people are probably familiar with. They've heard of essential oils. That's when they've been distilled. Usually they've been distilled with water, where you have the distillation apparatus and you put all the botanical matter in the beaker and then you heat it up and the essential oil comes off one way and everything else is evaporated and you end up with the essential oil down the bottom. So essential oils, in my mind, tend to be sort of lighter. They're kind of the lightest version of the botanical, the lightest representation. So the distillation technique is a great way of extracting the scented material. It's fantastic. If it works, it really works for juniper. You can smell that. It's very coniferous.
Yeah, very. Yep.
You almost get, the
Very
pine,
fresh and
very fresh. It's quite sweet. And so,
You're
obviously,
definitely getting that pine smell.
really, really piney. Does it smell? This is juniper berries as well. This is the berries. This isn't the twigs. And so, is it smelling exactly like we know? Have you ever used juniper in cooking? I don't think it. This is to me, it's a sweeter representation, a lighter kind of representation. And essential oil, most things you see, like, lavender essential oil, most things, I mean, look behind me, you can see these are all raw materials and raw materials and raw materials. They're all diluted, but I'd say most of them, at least 50% of them are probably, I don't know, I've never really looked, but at least I'd say probably 50% of them are essential oils. It's a great means of extracting the scent. It's quite light though.
sure.
Yeah, no, while Robin's applying that, just to show our viewers how this has come, how you've sent them to us, these beautiful little
Yeah.
bottles.
Yeah. And so a
Okay.
CO2 extraction, whereas steam distillation or hydrodistillation heats the botanical matter up. And so just in the heating process, you're going to lose some of the aroma, tiny little fragile aroma chemicals. CO2 extraction is fantastic. It is when put so much pressure on the carbon dioxide that it becomes liquid, and then they put the plant material in with the liquid CO2. This liquid CO2 absorbs the scented material and then they evaporate the CO2 and you are left off. And so you're just left with the scented material, but it hasn't been heated. And so you are left with the most incredible representation of the living, breathing plant. And if you smell that, that's juniper berry too. So
Smells so
vastly
different, doesn't it?
Extremely different.
So
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's mellower. I call it's a lower octave. It's more like a harp note. It's darker. It smells just like the juniper berry that you with. It's not so it's
Yeah,
lost
it smells, doesn't have that piney, as much of the pininess to it.
No, it's not as fresh smelling. It's more rich and I would almost say honeyed in the.
It's cold to my nose.
It's so
Oh,
cold,
really?
isn't
That's
it?
what I'm getting,
Almost
sort of.
peppery, which you get from juniper berries when you cook with it.
I can't believe how dramatically different these two are. It's amazing, just from the extraction technique.
Yeah.
Amazing. So is that something that somebody else does for you,
Mhm.
the extraction, or do you do this type of extraction
no,
yourself,
I buy
the
these.
CO2? extraction?
No. CO2 extraction is quite hard to find. If I see anything that's been CO2 extracted, I generally buy it. It's really expensive to do, and it's really expensive to operate the machineries. And I imagine that it doesn't work with all botanicals because you don't see that many CO2 extractions. You know, distillation is pretty, to get essential oils, it's kind of easier to do. It's more accessible. I buy from suppliers all around the world. If I find a great botanical that's got an awesome aroma profile, I buy it, and a lot of them are quite expensive. Like jonquil absolute is extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Like extremely expensive.
Wow.
And CO2 extracts, it depends. It depends. They're probably more expensive than essential oils as a sweeping statement. But no, I bought this. Yeah, I purchased these. I purchased the raw materials, and then I dilute them. I dilute small amounts of them, and I work with my pre-diluted ingredients.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really insightful for me. I haven't experienced anything like that before.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know,
No,
you couldn't possibly imagine how different
and
those
so
two could possibly smell.
And so, just as a caveat, they're both juniper berry, they're both Juniperus communis, and one, the steam distillation, they're from the same supplier, but they're different batches of juniper berries that would have been made into the CO2 extraction. So the different batches of, so there could be some difference based on that. They're both from the same country of origin. But that's just a really good example of how the different techniques produce the different smelling ingredients, and you get the same. So pink peppercorn is another one. I didn't send it to you, but it's quite similar. So the steam distilled pink pepper, exactly as juniper and juniper CO2 smell differently, they smell differently in the same way. So pink pepper essential oil I find is much lighter, sort of higher, sweeter, and then the CO2 makes it more of the middle note. It's mellower, it's more tenacious. I find that with most CO2s. In general, the CO2 extraction is going to be more tenacious, truer to the plant, more of a heart note if it's a top note in essential oil. I love CO2 extracts.
So I'd imagine that that there's going to be some materials out there that aren't as susceptible to, I guess, heat, being affected by heat, and so you don't need to CO2 extract everything. It's just that there's depends on the ingredient that you're working with.
And and some wouldn't last that extraction process, obviously. Like just like some don't last the distillation process. Some wouldn't last the CO2 extraction process. Some are better being absolute, and I explained the absolute, the solvent extraction, the absolute, how you reach the absolute before. I think some plants just work better with different extraction methods. What should we go to next? Let's look at the two different roses that I've sent. And so I've sent you the Egyptian. Let's go to the Rosa centifolia. This country of origin is Egypt. And you know what? Also just pop on a strip the white rose from Moldova as well. And so smell the clear one, the white rose. This is Rose alba from Moldova. I mean, that's incredible,
Very
isn't
different.
it? The white rose is just
sweet compared to the other one.
They're so incredibly different, aren't they? They're like different ends of the spectrum.
When you smell them, also when you smell them blind too. If you walked into a room and just smelt this by itself, and that was the only thing you smelt, you would smell something completely different. When suddenly you're smelling comparatively, you smell whole different tones start coming up. And so when I smell this by itself, not compared to the other rose, I get almost like lilac, I get lily of the valley, I get lychee, I get really fruity tones. If I smell the Rosa centifolia and then smell the Rose alba, all I get is plums.
Yeah, it's definitely the white rose. It's definitely got that fruitiness to it, doesn't it?
It's beautiful.
Yes, it does.
It's beautiful. So beautiful. And the Rosa centifolia, though, what I love about this one is it's so green. Like, do you smell the squashed leaves in there, like crushed leaves?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very green.
And it's funny because I feel like a lot of those sort of little headspace aromas have survived the extraction process with this. It's really good.
So the white rose, you said it was from where? Moldova?
Moldova, yeah.
Alba.
Yeah, Rosa alba.
And the Rose centifolia? Where's
It's
that from?
Egypt. Most Rosa centifolia you get is
That's from Egypt.
Tunisia. and the scent profile for the Rosa centifolia that's Tunisian is sort of much sort of more honeyed, more powdery, more typical rosy. You can also get Rosa centifolia from France, which I don't have the French varietal, but it's really special. I think most of that goes into the house of Chanel and Dior's fragrances.
I think it's forever I'll refer to the rose centifolia as the rose of 100 petals. We had a previous guest, Eden of Yore. Eden's also a natural perfumer, and she loves to romanticize the ingredients and calls it, rose of 100 petals. I think it's a nice way to describe it.
So gorgeous. Well,
both of these are lovely.
But you would have heard of the Rose de Mai.
Wow.
Have you heard of Rose de Mai as well? That's also Rosa centifolia, which is just the ones that are picked on the first day of May, or they're picked in May? It's meant to be the best of the Rosa centifolia. So what else have I got? Oh, liquid amber, Styrax. So this is a resin.
Yes.
This is, I don't even want to get into the extraction technique for this. It's a resin absolute. So resin, which is like dried sap, and then they extract it. They can use a solvent, and then I'm just not even going to go there for this one.
It's one of those ingredients that you do see on a lot of fragrances, and sometimes, unless you've looked it up, you wouldn't know what Styrax was, right? So let's have a sniff.
Well, this one's liquid amber, and so benzoin also is benzoin Styrax, but I think benzoin is more often referred to as benzoin, and Styrax is referred to as liquid amber or Styrax. So yeah, it is so funny, isn't it? Because you guys have kids. The first thing I smell when I smell that is baby poo. Like, it just has such a fecal note to it. I don't know. Did you get that?
I'm getting it.
You get it.
I think it's the...
Do you know what I feel like? It's like the aeroplane toilets.
Yeah, nice.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Rather than, that kind of...
Jeez, you made that sound wonderful.
Yeah, beautiful. So all the good things.
I get the... it's all the... We're making this sound horrible. This is sweet and delicious, right? I think this is actually a beautiful scent. When we're saying baby poo, if you haven't had babies before, baby poo isn't, you couldn't change babies' nappies constantly if it was absolutely as it is if it's the number 3. But baby poo is sort of got a sweeter sort of smell to it, because obviously all they're feeding on is sort of breast milk. And so, it's got a certain consistency to it. It's beautiful. But also worth noting that a lot of the white flowers that we smell, like a jasmine, for instance, has a bit of a poopy sort of smell to it as well. They're called indoles. And that's actually something that we as humans are quite attracted to. As long as it's not the only smell that we're getting, and they're combined with other ingredients, it makes up the structure of the fragrance. So it's actually quite an attractive smell. So while it can be a little bit poopy, it can be also quite nice.
Well, this is a great ingredient that I love using in amber bases, which is sort of those powdery balsamic bases. This is more a farmyard version of that, but it's still what I would call an amber base. And Styrax is a great fixative, and it adds complexity to the scents, and it really helps with making florals. In my mind, it makes heart note florals pop. It's really, really good, and it just adds a little something in there. It adds a nuance, and you only use it in really small amounts, and it's great. It's a really useful ingredient to have in your organ. Now,
so Katrina, when you say the word fixative, what does that mean?
So fixatives is it forms like a lattice, number one. It forms this is how I think of it, like a foundation or a lattice that keeps the perfume together. And so perfumes will mature, all the little molecules get to know each other over time, and then it matures, and then it becomes stable, and the fixatives keep it in that stable kind of structure, and they also help it stay on the skin for longer. And so that's what I mean when I talk about fixatives. It's sort of two things. And so you need a base to a perfume, and not all base notes are fixatives, but most fixatives are base notes. You need it to hold everything. You need it to hold everything together. I think of it a bit like a lattice. But funnily enough, speaking of fixatives, I find that some of the best fixatives in terms of longevity on the skin and tenacity of the perfume and keeping it together are these base note florals, which are your jonquil absolute, your tuberose absolute, your baronia absolute, are also wonderful fixatives too.
Okay, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
In my experience. I'm just talking about my experience, my subset of one.
Well, it does explain why you quite often see ambers in base notes as opposed to opening notes, although we have seen ambers in opening
Oh,
notes
yeah.
before, but yeah,
not mostly. It's in the
yeah,
base.
it's more commonly
Yeah.
found in the base.
Mm.
So fantastic. All right, which
We've
one
got
should we
one
move on to
left.
next?
To lemon in alcohol versus lemon in oil. And this is what some people might find interesting. So put the lemon on one hand, drop the lemon on one hand and the oil on the other. Don't bother with strips.
Just up here, because
Up
I've got the fragrance on that. Yeah,
And then
thank
put
you.
the lemon in the oil
So
on
that
the other
one's
one.
the lemon oil, and the alcohol trend will go onto the other arm. Oops. Oh,
Is
sorry, it's a little bit of a big squirt.
And then,
Wow.
great, it's lemon. It's and then smell.
Yeah, it's a lovely smell.
It's a beautiful smell, but you smell, just give it a second and then smell the oil versus the alcohol. The alcohol is
Oh.
evaporating the lemon off and the oil is closing it in. You've got a much stronger scent coming off the alcohol hand than you would coming off the olive
Yeah.
hand. And that's what oil does, because oil is such a heavy base in itself. So you're either going to dilute in alcohol. A perfume's mainly what the scented materials are diluted in, right? They're going to be like either 80% alcohol or 80% oil, give or take. Oil isn't so good with the really light notes. It's holding that down. Whereas you smell the hand that you've got the alcohol, and that lemon is,
Yeah, it's really
that
projecting.
lemon's popping. And on this one, there's no projection at all. It's holding it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting.
Alcohol works really well with like the lighter notes that you want to fizz, that you want to pop. You wouldn't, like your colognes, your citrus heavy, your top to middle heavy perfumes. Oil works really well, and it's such a beautiful, nurturing diluent and nourishing. It works much better with heavier fragrances, with heavier notes. So it works really well with things like sandalwood, with things like rose, with all your heavier, more sultry, middle to base notes. You would never, ever make a citrus perfume in oil. It just wouldn't work. A citrus heavy perfume or a cologne in oil wouldn't work.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, because I'm hardly getting anything at all from
No.
It's
the
it's
oil?
a different smell.
Yeah.
It's
It's
completely
totally
different.
Well, the
It's amazing.
oils, the oil
Yeah.
molecules are so heavy, so it doesn't evaporate. It just keeps it closed in.
This is
Yeah.
wrapping it up.
It's,
Yeah, it doesn't work.
doesn't have that brightness.
We are learning a lot.
Yeah.
We are learning a lot today. Thank you so much for taking us through
Yeah,
all of those
thank
raw
you.
ingredients. I mean, we haven't had the opportunity to do this before. Definitely, that next stage of our perfume journey is to start to, work with some of these raw ingredients and really get to understand them a little bit more by playing with the raw ingredients. This is a great sort of first introduction. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. So I think now we should explore the broader range of Archer Farrar perfumes. So we've got several here.
Look at that
I
cute
know.
little bottles.
All right, I'm just.
I have to
Gosh,
just
These
close
bottles
them
are,
up.
are quite small, so I'm gonna show it on the screen.
I see the discovery sets. Yeah, they're little 1 mils.
So cute.
Yes. So
Yeah,
what we'll
stunning.
do though is we'll superimpose the actual bottles onto the screen. So that people can see them. So they'll
Yep.
be popping up on your screen now. So you can actually see how beautiful these bottles are. We're going to go through them. Now, we've got several here.
Yeah.
Where would you like to start, Katrina?
Where do we start? Start at San.
Okay.
Sandara. All right. So we've absolutely run out of skin here between our lemon and actually putting on the fragrance at the start of the show. So everything's going onto blotters. All right. Let's have a smell. So this one is called Sandara.
Yes.
Let's have a little smell. Oh, wow.
I like that.
It's really nice, isn't it? All right. So talk to us about Sandara. What are we getting here? We're obviously going to only really sort of get the opening notes and maybe some of the heart and base notes that might be sort of punching through here, but we're not going to get all the way through the dry down here. So what have we got inside of Sandara?
The Sandara is really, it's my tribute to everything on the bitter orange tree. And so that's like petitgrain. It's the orange blossom, which you might know better as neroli. Neroli is a steam distillation of the orange blossom. You can also get orange blossom absolute. You can get petitgrain absolute. So there is orange blossom absolute in there as well as the neroli. And so it's very kind of orange blossom. And then the sand bit of the name comes from the sandalwood in the base. And so I love that sort of divine pairing of everything of the bitter orange tree, including the bitter orange essential oil itself, and the sandalwood, basically. Quite vanilla. It's my romantic fragrance. I sort of think of it as a kind of a romantic evening at dusk in a bountiful garden, and it wears really beautifully as well. It's quite easy company, Sandara.
Yeah, definitely. I'm getting that sandalwood, even though it's in the base.
Yeah,
it's coming
the
through.
sandalwood
It's quite
comes
warm.
through. Yeah, it's really warm and
Yep.
creamy, and quite a lot of vanilla too.
I think it's a very gorgeous, scent, actually.
It's quite
I
bright
like
in the opening, but you've got the warmth
Mm.
of the sandalwood there that's coming through from the base.
It's got the petitgrain. I think you can get that as well.
No, this is lovely. Sandara, great wear. All right, where should we move on to next?
What have I got next? Why don't we go peony cologne?
So cologne often refers to a concentration of perfume. In this circumstance, is it referring to the concentration
No,
of
it's just
the perfume or the
it's
style?
just referring to the style, which is, the Hesperides, the citrus. It's citrus heavy. It's more a cologne style, a fresher style. I created this one. I used to layer 2 perfumes, one being a Dior cologne and one being, it was like a Jo Malone rose peony blush. And I always wanted to have it all in one place. So this is my sort of interpretation of that kind of the cool cologne with a really sweet peony heart. And this is the one that took me a long time.
I want to describe it almost like a drink. I can't imagine the exact drink, but
An alcoholic
like an
drink?
alcoholic drink.
Yeah,
like
I'm
a
with you.
cocktail.
It's
of
got
some
cocktail vibes
sort.
to it for sure. Rose is coming through for me. I'm getting some rose punching through. Are you
Okay.
getting any rose?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm definitely getting the
floral.
bergamot there in the
Yeah.
opening, but I can smell some rose there. Is there sandalwood in this as well?
Trent,
I think there might
You're-
be some sandalwood in the base.
I know you're testing me. There would be. Is it a woody? It's a woody amber base. It's got a tiny bit of sandalwood, tiny bit of cedarwood, coconut, benzoin.
Yeah. I wouldn't consider this a woody fragrance, but yeah, I'm getting a little bit.
It's very lovely as well.
This is more florally, citrus
floral.
floral.
I kind of think of this one as
Amber.
my kind of clean girl fragrance. I
Okay.
wear this.
It's
Yeah,
definitely
probably
clean.
most. Yeah, it's clean. What about going kind of left of field now and doing dark cedar?
Yes,
Cedar.
yes. Been
Okay.
looking forward to this one.
Here we go. All right, let's get it on.
All right, dark cedar. So I'm assuming from the name, it's going to be a woody fragrance, being cedar. So it's going to have cedar in it. I could be wrong, but
It's got quite a lot of cedar.
let's have a smell.
That doesn't necessarily come
Wow.
out from the start. It is dark and brooding though. I think someone just referred to it as the Heathcliff of perfumes, as in dark and brooding, and I liked that.
I like this a lot, actually.
This reminds me of a cigar.
Exactly.
It's quite interesting.
It's like I call it a sort of a dirty rose martini in a whiskey bar.
Yeah, I was going to say there's something boozy in there.
Very
it's
and then,
boozy.
yeah, you said
It's got
cigar.
cognac in it. That one, it wears much better on the skin than on a strip. It wears beautifully. It really maintains the heart notes. It wears for a long time. And it's reasonably static too, which is really nice. And the vanilla
I really
tones
like
come
it.
out more. The smokiness is a lot of Javan vetiver. It's got Nagamotha in there, which is really smoky. And it's got cedarwood absolute and cedarwood essential oil. It's got rose at the heart, but a different mossy rose, which is called rose by absolute, which is actually an absolute made of the spent distillation flowers from the rose. That's geeky. Juniper up top, which is the booziness too.
This is leather couch, cigar, whiskey in hand. This is lovely, really complex. Like,
I love it.
Oh.
It's very nice.
beautiful. I might have to slather myself in that on the way home. That's beautiful.
I won't mind at all, actually.
All right,
All right.
Katrina, which one should we move on to next?
What about forest balsam? While we're at that end,
Okay. Yes, sure. Let's do it. Right.
All right, so this will be a I'm assuming from the name bit more on the green side of things.
very green.
You also get that orange or some sort of sweetness up the top.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's got the citrusy sort of opening. What are actually getting here in the opening?
So you will get a lot of fir balsam, a lot of orange. It's actually green mandarin. Are you getting that, or
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
Yeah,
you are getting
Yeah,
that?
I'm getting the citrus
It's a good mix of the two. It's
Fir balsam and
one doesn't overpower the other.
I love fir balsam and I just love fir balsam. Fir balsam gives me, it's sort of piney and coniferous, but I get a real pineapple note from it too, a real fruity note. And I love that with the green mandarin. I wanted this one to be like, kind of like an alpine forest, almost skiing in an alpine forest, but then moving inside into a warm kind of lodge with the spent fire. So it's almost like cologne up top, but then it gets really warm in the heart and really woody in the heart. It's hinoki in the heart too. And then at the base, it's sort of sweet, ashy amber. So I think this one's quite hard to define.
Yeah.
Whether it's a summer
Yeah.
or a winter fragrance.
Yeah, I think this was pretty much all year round.
And
This
then you've
fragrance.
also got to sort of think it could really be one of those ones. I just feel like it'd be one that really feels different on everybody's skin.
Smell that next to green vetiver, because green vetiver, you will get vetiver. It is vetiver, vetiver, vetiver.
Okay.
But forest balsam,
Let's smell it. Let's
All
have a
right,
smell.
let's-
All right, so that is a generous application.
that now compare, and it's like, because they're both citrus at the top, and then one moves through all the different vetivers, and the
Yeah,
other
I see what
one,
you mean.
the other one's so much pinier.
Yeah, well, now it's much more piney.
Much more
Yeah.
piney. So
Absolutely.
smelling it next to a vetiver. And that's what
Yeah.
I was saying before. Isn't it funny how you smell things so differently when you're comparing versus when you
Mm.
just going in straight?
Because now now I can't smell the orange as much at all. It's definitely coming up more the
Yeah.
pine. Mm.
The forest, now I go back to the forest balsam. It sort of reminds me of like stepping out of a like a sauna in the middle of the forest.
Perfect.
It's got that sort of smell to it.
And it's got a lot of cedar. It's got cedar and hinoki and some really warm kind of woods in there. That's exactly what I was going for. So like an alpine forest, somewhere snowy, but then going into somewhere really warm.
Yeah, amazing. I love this vetiver smell though.
You
isn't
love
it?
the
Isn't
vetiver,
it
yeah.
glorious?
Green vetiver's great.
Mm.
It's almost therapeutic,
vetiver.
isn't it? The vetivers.
Lovely.
So you've used quite a lot of different vetivers in this one.
I think I've used 5 different vetivers in that. Yeah. Double distilled, Madagascan, Javan, Haitian. I missed one.
Are you a bit of a vetiver fan yourself?
I love vetiver. It takes me straight back to my aromatherapy days, all of 25 years ago. Yeah, I love vetiver. It's really calming. It's really grounding. That one's an oil base as well. And so I think the vetivers do work very well in that oil base. They feel nurturing and nourishing and therapeutic, even though it's a perfume.
Okay. So it's just where you've got a citrus. Citruses in oils don't work,
They look, that one particularly is in an oil base, but it does use quite a lot of citrus in the top notes too. Blackcurrant, bud absolute too, to make the citrus sort of pop a bit more.
as it is,
works
to be
beautifully.
honest.
What I love about the alcohol base with the oil base, rather, with that is the nurturing aspect of the oil, along with the sort of the nurturing aspect of the vetiver. That's how it makes me feel.
Wow, that's beautiful. Wow. You have got an amazing range here, I've got to say. All right, which one should we move on to next? I think we've got...
What do we have? Embrace? Embrace, I think we're almost there.
All right, let's roll that out onto the blotter. So this one's called Embrace.
And this is more my...
Tell us, what's the inspiration behind Embrace?
Embrace, I think I wanted to do one that was it's an oil base too, so it's really nurturing, but quite a sensual perfume, like the deep, if it was a color, it's sort of deep burgundy crimson velvet. It's got coffee in it, which is so beautiful. At the base with vetiver, on top it's peppery, jasmine. I mean, it's very jasmine driven. I feel like it is my most kind of sensual perfume.
Yeah, I mean, I immediately smell the jasmine, when I put it to my nose. And yeah.
Quite balanced. Like it's not just a lot of jasmine fragrances, all you can smell is jasmine. This is not just all jasmine. Jasmine forward, but quite balanced. So you mentioned there's coffee in here as well.
There's coffee at the base, which becomes more prominent as you get through the notes.
As it dries down.
As it dries down.
This is lovely.
Lovely.
It smells familiar. I don't know what it is about this.
I get from a lot of people it smells like a spa, like when you go into almost that kind of scent.
Yeah. When I think of jasmine, I think we heard recently that it's good for clarity as well as being sensual.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking that when I've been wearing my jasmine forward fragrances.
It's difficult to do. I think it's difficult to do these justice just on the blotter. You need to wear these
You
on the
need to
skin.
wear them, especially oils. Oils are made to be worn
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
felt, and they are so lovely on the skin. And that one particularly, I think Embrace has probably been my bestseller.
Because
Okay.
that's beautiful, but you can sort of tell it's going to take quite a long time to get down to the
Yeah.
coffee.
Yeah.
Because I'm not getting it here, but you're not going to dry down on a blotter in 2 minutes. So
No,
I'll have to wear that one.
oil's not. Oil's not. And then I just have my gardenia, which is the
All right,
enfleurage.
so we'll definitely be committing to memory enfleurage, won't we? That's our new perfumery term that
I will
we've
definitely not forget this technique, because the way that you've described it, Katrina, I could just imagine it. And, if you were that way inclined, experimenting with it as a child or as a teenager as well.
It's fun. It's fun. It's easy. It's
Yeah.
time consuming is all. And you just have to have access to so many flowers. And so it just smells like gardenias. It's a spritz. It doesn't have any base notes. It's just the enfleurage is straight. And so it
Wow.
doesn't last on the skin. It doesn't have any fixatives. Anything I've added to it just changes the scent profile too much. But it's one of those things, if it's in a spray, it's just so beautiful. But it doesn't last long on the skin. It lasts longer on clothes. You wouldn't ever spray it on white, but, just sort of misting and walking through. And it's just so beautiful.
It's very light and uplifting and sort of,
And green and fresh and creamy.
immediately. Yeah.
It's springtime. It just smells like, I don't know, in Melbourne, do you have a lot of gardenias in gardens? In Sydney, they're everywhere.
In Melbourne, you do as well.
You do, yeah. And when you walk past them, they have a very strong scent.
Very
don't they?
strong.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you say, it takes quite a lot of flowers to, I guess we've got gardenia here. We've used the enfleurage technique. How many flowers would it actually require to make just one of your standard bottles of fragrance?
I think I probably get about 800 mils of extract, and that's probably about 1,000 flowers.
It's 1,000 flowers.
Well, I'm thinking about each bit I use is 25 flowers or more. And then I have 2 plates going, and I probably do that for, hundreds and hundreds, almost 1,000. Yeah.
Wow.
It takes a lot, doesn't it?
It takes a lot, and it's also such a, it's time consuming
It's
and
time-
patience
yeah,
and
it's
all of those
time-consuming.
things.
I think I probably do it for about, however long the gardenias bloom. And if I get 1,000 flowers, that's great. But some years it's been terrible. This year it's looking like it's going to be pretty good.
So you grow those yourself?
I grow them myself.
Do you, Katrina?
Yeah.
It's
And
amazing.
That's probably, that's like I've probably got 12 bushes of gardenia plants that I look after pretty well. They're very fickle. I give them more attention than my children.
Well, I think this is a wonderful fragrance. This is so true to gardenia. I absolutely love it. I love the fact that, we've sort of brought the education piece in here with the enfleurage technique. I think one of the things that I love about this is the way that you have described the technique isn't it just so accessible to everybody? If you want to be a perfumer and you want to, make your own perfume, you actually can.
Oh, yeah.
People have been doing this for hundreds of years. You don't necessarily have to
Thousands.
do a 4-year degree you don't need to go to France to learn how to do it. You can just play around with some really basic techniques and start creating your own perfumes if you want to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely you can. And, as well, starting to work with oil, like fractionated coconut oil, is a great way to start, especially if you're younger. The alcohol I use is really expensive. Like everything I do seems to be really expensive because I use organic alcohol that doesn't have any other chemicals put into it. But starting to formulate with fractionated coconut oil it's really safe. It's reasonably cheap. You can do it with what essential oils you can buy from your pharmacy if you want to do that. It's like aromatherapy is very accessible to everyone. Well, so is natural perfumery. And making the scented materials yourself. Obviously, if you're doing enfleurage, you need to have access to alcohol, but you can buy perfumers' alcohol pretty readily at perfume suppliers.
Yeah, it's these ingredients though, they are quite expensive. I think our previous guest, when he started his perfume journey, almost gave up on perfumery because he was doing natural perfume. It was just so
expensive,
prohibitively expensive. And this is probably why there are so many, sort of synthetics out there. Synthetic materials are cheaper than natural ingredients. And I guess that this is why you might pay a bit more for a natural perfume than you might for a synthetic perfume, because they're quite differently priced, with synthetics being significantly more cheap than natural ingredients.
Yeah. And look, it depends on, I do everything I can to find the best, and the best is often really expensive because it's rarer. Like that Moldovan rose, the jonquil absolute, they're beautiful, beautiful ingredients, and that's reflective in the price. But some beautiful ingredients are cheap. Look at bergamot. I mean, that's the workhorse of natural perfume. I use a lot of bergamot. It's cheap. Start there. Start with, like I said, what you can get from your local aromatherapy toolkit, and work up.
Yep, it's just start playing around, and who knows what you'll come up with. You've got to experiment. I'm sure the very first fragrances that any perfumer makes aren't ready to bottle and sell.
Absolutely.
You got to have a little play.
Yeah, it's fun. It's meant to be fun. It's perfume. It's hedonism. It makes you feel good.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
It's a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
So, play around with it.
Yeah.
So, fantastic. Katrina, thank you so much. I mean, we've gone all the way through a whole bunch of raw ingredients with a whole range of different distillation methods. We've gone through your broader range as well. I think we're probably ready now to circle back and start to explore our base notes of Mona Farm.
Yes.
We can't forget that we're here to do Mona Farm. We got
we got totally carried away.
Yes. So the base notes.
So just before we do dive into the base notes, as is tradition here with the Olfactive Melbourne podcast, we'll just explain what base notes are. Yes. So we're going to return just for a moment to our perfume pyramid. So we're now at the very bottom of the perfume pyramid here. So when we think about the shape of a pyramid, the base of the pyramid is the widest section of the pyramid, and it is made up of aroma molecules that are almost the opposite of our opening notes. So they're denser, and these are the notes that actually stick to our skin for the longest. They're the base because they provide that sort of supporting structure for the heart notes and the opening notes that sit above it. So once our fragrance dries down and our opening notes have dissipated and our heart notes have started to dissipate as well, we're often left with those base notes for an extended period of time. Now, we have explained as we've gone through this show, not all fragrances unfold in a linear manner, that we will, as we experience a fragrance in the opening, we will get some of those base notes coming through. Sometimes we'll get the heart notes coming through as well, but just gives us a good understanding of how a perfume is structured, so that we can better understand when we get a breakdown on the back of our bottle of the opening heart and base notes, how all of that works. So with all of that explained, Katrina, what are we experiencing here in the base?
Well, the base is like the agrestic notes, which means your sort of farmy notes, but in a more of an amber base. And so I want to get across sort of the damp paddock and the cool mist, as well as some of those mulchier tones, the misty notes of kind of the frankincense, the powdery, the amber balsamic notes, which is your kind of benzoin, which is like a powdery sweetness, but alongside that hay, which we could almost smell from the start, which makes it sort of, the damp, misty, balmy, a little bit of leather. I want almost like that beautiful sweetness, that horsey kind of leather smell, the saddle, let's call it saddle smell, which is coming there too. But the jonquil lasts through. But as we smelt from when we had the jonquil on a strip, the jonquil almost has hay-like tones. And so a lot of the ingredients I've smelt, they all have commonalities there, those sort of hay-like, damp, hay-like, beautiful tones.
Yeah, I think you've really captured a sense of place with this. Yeah. I mean, I haven't been to Mona Farm, but I'm now dying to go, because what you've captured here really paints quite a romantic, I guess it's not a vision, it's a romantic smell of Mona Farm, but I'm definitely in that base getting that hay, getting that
slightly wet hay.
Yeah.
The misty kind of vibe. But I still can smell a slight sweetness from the jonquils as well.
Jonquil,
absolutely.
Maybe the amber.
Or the amber, maybe. Yeah. So it's not all earthy and damp.
It's
got that
still quite
sweetness.
green,
Yes.
isn't it? There's still some definite green tones in there as well.
Herbaceous.
Herbaceous, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's lovely. It's definitely got it's got a dampness about it and earthiness about it, but it's quite well rounded and quite balanced out with that sweetness.
I feel like the agrestic smells were a bit more strong on my skin before.
It is quite a traditional amber base with those more earthy tones, leaning towards those earthy tones.
And then
Nick-
it's got that beautiful natural scent on top that, if you love that botanical smell, it's there too.
It's barnyardy without being working farm, I think. It's what it reminds me of. We were only talking about this yesterday about the kids wanting to go to the Royal Melbourne Show. And when you're getting to the sort of the animal section, but you're like a kilometre away from it, and you just get that nice whiff of hay and that beautiful smell before you actually get into the working room. It's got that scent
there's no
to me where it's beautiful and sweet.
Yeah, it smells like fresh paddocks and grass and mist and all the nice things.
Country.
You need to want to wear it. It does. It still needs to be pretty, and it is.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
very wearable.
Yeah, it is. It is, absolutely.
So we've talked about a lot about the vision that you're creating here with Mona Farm, but wearing a fragrance isn't just about what we sort of imagine in our minds, but how we want to feel. And you mentioned that, it's got to be pretty. So how do you want people to feel when they wear Mona Farm?
And I want them to feel like if they were at the farm themselves, and so quite joyful, free, back to nature. I mean, quietly confident, of course, that they're wearing a beautiful crafted perfume. All those things that you'd feel, mainly all those things that you'd feel if you were actually in this setting yourself.
Does that give you sort of a sense of occasion? Where might you be best to sort of wear a fragrance like this? Is this a date night fragrance? Is this a work fragrance? Is this a wear at any time fragrance?
I think you just have to wear it all the time. All the time.
24/7. It's
24/7. 24/7. Absolutely. Yeah, I have. I think it's a wear every day type fragrance. I mean, it was created for sort of autumn, winter. I think it probably does lean towards those middle months a little more. Yeah, maybe slightly cooler leaning months.
Yeah, I think this is a very wearable. We've said this actually about the vast majority of the fragrances in your range. They're very, very wearable. They're not, sometimes you get a fragrance that's quite challenging to wear, you like it, but you probably wouldn't wear it to the office because people would be going, I'm not so sure that. This is one of those you could wear that to the office. You wear it in any sort of occasion. Very beautiful smelling.
Well crafted, elegant, just so perfect for so many occasions. Yeah. I think for anyone who likes and loves natural and botanical fragrances, you could, a discovery set would be amazing because you can get to try them all.
Thanks, Robin.
And I also wanted to just mention that you've also got the incense.
I do.
Oh, yes.
Incense.
Mona Farm, which is cool.
Incense is so fun.
Yeah.
So the incense, I skewed more towards the rose garden rather than the jonquil garden, only because you have to think about incense it's going to be burnt. It has to lend itself to smoke. I don't think jonquil is prohibitively expensive to use to create incense.
It just burn.
And to burn, exactly. So instead I used rose absolute. I mean, equally crazy to use that in incense, amongst other things. But the incense still shares the very much like the herbaceousness and the mistiness. There's frankincense in there, but it's more focused around the rose garden rather than the jonquil garden. And it burns beautifully. It's a stunning incense. Incense is so much fun to make. I really enjoy making incense too. I have a few. I have another couple of incenses in my range as well.
It's an amazing incense. So, Rob and I had an agreement that we wouldn't touch your range until we got to today so that we could discover it in real time. And this is one that we absolutely could not resist burning that incense. And it's a next
good,
level
isn't it?
incense.
It's really good. I know.
Yeah.
It's sort
really
of
good.
Yeah. It does ruin other incense
Yeah,
for you.
There's
little.
incense and there's Archer Farrar
Yeah.
incense, and they're two different things, I think. So
This is true.
if you want a really good incense,
Yeah.
really you just cannot go past this. It's absolutely glorious.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Well, this was quite the masterclass, wasn't it?
It
was
Now,
indeed.
was. We've covered a lot of ground.
Yes.
we have.
Amazing.
So I guess the next question for you is, I mean, we sort of touched on it before that you'll be adding to the range, but I guess what's next for Archer Farrar?
Well, I launch Mona Farm next week. And then next year I have another perfume in the pipeline, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, Christmas is coming. And so I'm just really getting started. As I said, I've only had the website up to purchase from for the last 2 months. So everything's still pretty new for me. No, there won't be
That's
any,
so
there won't be, it's
exciting.
all still very exciting. There won't be any huge changes, just some perfumes, some more perfumes I'll be launching.
So you've only had the website up for 2 months,
Yeah.
but you've been around for a while.
I've been around.
Now
Yes,
you've
yes,
also
yes.
won some. You've been around for quite a few
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
I believe for the last 2 years in a row that you've been a winner at the Clean and Conscious Awards. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. And so I entered Embrace Oil 2 years ago, and that came third. So it was a place winner in Best Oil Perfume category, which I mean, I'm delighted by. I'm a very small perfume studio, and I was in incredible company. And so I was pretty surprised by that, really. It means the world. And this year I put green vetiver oil in, and it won a place again in the oil category. So I was really delighted by that. And also, to be honest, quite surprised because vetiver can be quite polarizing. And so I really didn't think I was in. I was kicking myself thinking, why did you not enter? Why did you enter, of all your perfumes, why did you enter that one? And it got a place. So yeah, I'm thrilled. And I love those awards. They're lovely. I mean, they're awarding people for trying to act in the most ethical and sustainable way that they can, which is really important.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
quite it's quite a feat to get an award in place. In this particular award, there is some extremely high standards that need to be met to meet that Clean and Conscious Awards as well. You should be very proud of your awards. I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
We've seen some pretty incredible brands being awarded in this particular category. Fantastic. So we've got a few things in the pipeline. We've got Mona Farm that'll be available to the general public soon. By the time that this episode releases, Mona Farm will be readily available on the Archer Farrar website for people to purchase. And of course, we're coming up to that time of year where this is the perfect time to start purchasing some gifts for Christmas as well. So where can our listeners buy Archer Farrar fragrances from?
On my website, just online at the moment, and then
Fantastic.
Mona Farm can be purchased through the Mona Farm boutique as well, which is online too, and at the farm. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Fantastic. So for those people who are watching, the Archer Farrar website is popping up on the bottom of your screen right now. For those who are listening on Spotify or who are listening through Apple Podcasts, we'll ensure that we embed the website straight into the description. So if you're not aware of it, pop into the description and there'll be a hyperlink there to click straight through to the Archer Farrar website. What you'll also see popping up on your screen right now is a QR code. That QR code will take you to our website, which is olfactive.com.au. On our website, we'll have a bit of a profile here of Katrina and of Archer Farrar. And within the website will also be a link back to the website. So lots and lots of ways to actually find the Archer Farrar website and purchase some of these beautiful fragrances for yourself. Highly recommend that you start with getting the sample pack so you can try a little bit of everything and sort of work out what works for you and works on your skin. It's great to sample first before you dive into some of the larger bottles or oils.
So thank you so much, Katrina. It's been absolute pleasure to spend time with you today, and for sharing so much of your amazing knowledge with us, which we really appreciate. And these very precious samples and raw ingredients that you've left us with, I think we will start to train our noses a little bit more with these over the next couple of months, and think of today very fondly as our first kind of masterclass in that sort of area. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's been so lovely. So hopefully we'll have you again in the
Yeah.
future. But until then, we really do appreciate all of your time. And thank you to all of our listeners as well. We hope that you've enjoyed this wonderful episode with Katrina Cochrane from Archer Farrar. And we look forward to seeing you again next time for another adventure in fragrance. Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.